Good morning, everybody. This is Bill, and coming to you live this morning. And today's subject is solar energy. And anyway, things that we're all interested in. I've never believed that you can have free energy, so to speak. You don't get something for nothing. And so anyway, I ran across a deal the other day that I almost bid at, and I'm glad I didn't just buy it right then without looking before I leaped. And I want to share my findings. I've always believed that uh, a 10 kilovolt system is what I needed. And so anyway, a friend of mine had run across a deal on 72 150 watt panels, and the deal, was a pretty good deal. It's been about $5,400 in panels. Morning, Jason. And anyway, I was calculating up to buy these 72 panels and go through, and I am so glad I looked and got caught up with technology that's out there, and then technology that's coming. And so I made out my show notes, and today's discussion is going to be on solar energy and planning the considerations of a solar system. The budget, okay. The budget of what's out there for a 10 kW system without battery backup, paying retail prices and everything, is pretty well set by a number one company that has been a leader in the industry. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to talk about manufacturers at this point. There's just a lot of stuff out there, but the budget for a 10K system and really looking at solar energy is for about 10 kW with all the permits, and it's surprising how little switching that they do from when I studied solar energy from the past and what's available now, and then what's going to be available in the future. Okay, and so I've always liked battery backup systems because it's quiet. You're not running a generator in doing that. So battery technology has been number one, and like I said, that with the aircraft that I'm working with, that has become very important because of the MoGen asymmetrical metronomic system that I'm working with. So first of all, before you hook up to the grid, you need to make sure that you have what's known as a net meter. Okay, and a net meter is provided by the power company, and you can generate energy in your own home, send it to the grid, and if you don't have a net meter, you're actually paying double from the energy provider. In my part of the country, we have the poles and wire people in most section in the DFW area. There are a few cities that are still their own electric providers, and they're not deregulated yet. They pretty well control what's in there. So, but specifically where I live, the pole and wire people can set you up with a net meter. You can actually sell energy back to the energy company, should you provide that you want to make more. Okay. And like I said, I'm not going to get into names or what that is. The number one thing with energy is really understanding your loads. And I've been preparing for emergency generation for my household for a very long time. And of course, it makes sense to switch to the right kind of light bulbs, getting those loads down. One of the things that I did also is I separated my communications, internet services on a completely separate breaker. We use satellite TV, but we also have availability antenna TV, and buying the devices that we can watch TV in that. When it boils down to your loads, this is a pretty big home that I'm getting ready to. It's about 6,000 square feet overall, and there's a swimming pool involved in running the swimming pool pumps, those type things. We actually have 4 refrigerators and freezer within our system. And 3 air conditioners. So, we've got a lot going on that's probably unnecessary, but that's the way this household is set up. So HVAC is a big consideration for that. Also, heating the swimming pool is another consideration, and how we're doing all that just in this home. Okay. It's almost obscene the amount of electricity that we consume, because energy, is pretty inexpensive right now. With everything considered, taking your bill and seeing what your kilowatt hours are, negotiating with your power company is very, very important. And you need to look at that because they change to a month-to-month contract, even though like you had a 1-year contract, 2-year contract, 3-year contract. And so, the same power provider can charge you 15.7 cents a kilowatt hour, and reducing that down to somewhere around 12 cents for overall is really important to do. Some people feel like 13 cents is a good deal, but with the poles and wires, they have their pass-through cost, and some energy companies are able to mark up that pass-through cost in my area. And so making sure that you understand what the pass-through cost is from your poles and wire people, because they're going to get their part of it. And then even though your energy company is saying, okay, we're going to sell you this for 7 cents a kilowatt hour, and we're going to charge you a base fee of $9, and then understanding that the poles and wire people can also charge you, 3 cents, 3.1 cents, 3.4 cents, just depending on what that is. And that's a fixed rate that nobody can change. And so when you're buying energy, those are the things to consider. So look at all that and, make sure that you make your best deal when you're doing that. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. The choices that you have are a whole plethora of choices, and you have your drawbacks. And so, like I said, first thing you got to do is consider your loads and how you want to manage your loads, and whether those are going to be on-grid loads or off-grid loads. And there's things to consider in that area too. Half cell versus full cell. When you're buying solar panels, you can get a half cell system, and there are advantages to the half cell system if you're using what they call string inverters, and your amperage goes down a little bit, but your voltage is controlled through that. So you you have a consideration to make whether you want to use a half cell versus full cell system. The other thing is the cells that I was really going to get a good deal on were the polycrystalline, cheaper cells instead of the monocrystalline. The monocrystalline cells are a little bit more expensive to manufacture. There's less waste in them. You get your best bang for the buck. And overall, like I said, I was planning on doing 72 150 watt panels. And since then, I've re-educated myself. Well, that's not the best deal. Okay. And so in my case, I'm looking at panels that produce 390 watt, almost 400 watt, 390 watt panels. Same size, but and I'm looking at the half cell versus the full cell, but I want monocrystalline. I've already determined that for my own self in the PV panels, photovoltaic solar panels. In my part of the country, in the DFW area, we're about between 32 and 33 degrees latitude. And for your best solar output, that's really what that ends up to is the degrees. So the degrees the solar panels need to be facing to the south is about 7.8 by 12 run. That would give us about a 32.9 degree ratio, which is pretty much perfect for facing solar panels. So knowing how you're going to mount that, where you're going to mount them, making sure that you don't have vent pipes. We have several roof sunlights that come through for dark, that would normally be dark rooms. And so those are in the way of a lot of places that solar panels could go. The really neat thing is that companies that sell energy can look at your home. A lot of the information is 3 or 4 years old, and they don't take into consideration of trees that have been cut down over the years. So like I said, the information is older, so sometimes you have to visually look at and do that. Flying a drone over your area, certain times a day, taking pictures of what's actually there for calculating your shaded areas, real important. And so like I said, understanding your power consumption for what you're doing and is really important. Also knowing the difference between your sun hours and your daylight hours. And so you have peak times as far as sun hours that your solar panels will be working and putting those units together. So your roof mounting layout is really very important in making all your considerations and the angles and everything to get your best efficiency from your panel. So as I mentioned, we were talking about the difference of string inverters, power optimizers, and then that leads us to micro inverters. And micro inverters are pretty cool things. And like I said, I'm not going to talk about different brands and things, but micro inverters are designed to tie into the grid system, and they are complete with the rapid shutdown system. So a lot of things that go in with the NEC codes to make that happen. And I'm leaning more towards the microinverter side of it. But what's really cool about a microinverter is that it detects the load that, as far as frequency that's coming from the power utility and blends that right on through, which can get you away from the big power boxes. You have one microinverter per solar cell, and the range of cost is to do that is about $150, $175 per cell. However, the whole unit shuts down if the grid shuts down. Okay, with that system, one of the things that is coming is to where if the power shuts down, then the microinverter will still produce energy. But what has to happen is you have to have a lockout that goes in place that protects the grid system. You're always protecting the grid if you're on the grid. So those inverters are not off the shelf yet, and they're not out yet, but they are coming. They're supposed to be coming out the first of 2020. So, soon on that. Labor rates, kind of interesting. The labor is a huge part, and there's a lot of labor that goes into pulling the permits, properly designing the system, doing the drone flyovers, getting all that calculated exactly where all the equipment is going. Planning is the key. But like I said, I was looking at doing 72 panels, and the cool thing about the microinverters is that if one panel in the chain is having a problem, it doesn't shut the whole thing down. When you do the string inverters, it's kind of like each one of those strings, you get bird poop on it or bird lands on it, you get shadowing, then that whole string can be effectively shut down. So the microinverter side is what I'm looking at, that, as far as what I'm doing. The circuit combiners, on a 10.8 kV system, you could be all right, probably protecting with a 30 amp breaker. 40 amp might be better, but 220 volt system. But the main thing is to look before you leap, because, like I said, I always kind of considered if I could buy all the materials for 50 cents a kilowatt hour, that'd be the, not kilowatt hour, 50 cents a watt, that'd be a pretty good buy. And as it turns out, I can get away for the same amount of money, less cells, less labor to install the system, have a better system, and have a more expandable systems. When you check all the boxes for what you're wanting to do, make sure that you check all the boxes, be informed of what's coming as far as optimization, even with the microinverters, because you can fool them like running a generator to get the pulse to do that, and but you're still adding a generator to the system. And batteries, can we stick with the Trojan 225 amp 6 volt systems and string those out and do the battery backup and then go to a system? Sure, we can. But the LG, well, I don't want to mention any names, but there are systems out there, since I've opened that can of worms, Tesla, LG, those type things. I did mention Trojan. Consider what it is you're doing, the length and longevity of the system. You're going to spend quite a bit of money if you're going to a 10 kW system, any way you look at it. On that. So I'm definitely leaning towards microinverter. That's one inverter per cell. 400 watt panels, which are available, very good buy comparatively. And but then that can be tied to a single grid tie inverter. But when you're doing a lot of these things, you also have to have dummy loads, such as heating elements, and knowing how to use those dummy loads within the system. So anyway, there is a 30% tax credit available under federal income tax in my part of the country. I'm pretty sure it's federal, so it's all parts. So there you do get some things back, but the thing I think most people don't really consider, and I've got to do a better job on my own home, is the monitoring equipment. And there's a lot of if you really want to know what's going on, there are third-party monitoring equipment companies that you can have it sent right to your cell phone, know exactly what your system is doing, and monitoring your equipment. Of course, a lot of the guys out there, we're capable of building our own devices. So, that's the difference of off the shelf, and then what people like myself, I'm capable of doing my own devices. But the number one thing I'm finding that I'm really lacking at, that I didn't do for my own home, is just simple monitoring of what I'm using, when I'm using it, and the tricks of the trade of switching units, which are planned to be done with the new refrigerators coming out, the new HVAC systems coming out, where we can strategically not shut down the whole thing, but the monitoring side of that, to where we can make a smaller system do everything we need it to do just by simply managing that system. So it's going to boil down to being a management game with our piece of equipment to get that done. So I hope this helped you understand a little bit more what's going out there, but really look before you leap, because even thinking that you know something, I know nothing. Sometimes you wake up and it's a whole new world out there. But understanding your expectation of what it is that you want to do. I want to be able to run my swimming pool pump so I have clean water that doesn't get stagnant. Should the power be shut off for 1 week or 2 weeks. Okay, I want to have that. I want to be able to stay warm. I want to be able to stay cool. If it's hot outside, I want to be able to, cool the house down to where I can do that. The number one thing with survival is always have it. If you have ice, and what I mean by, cubed ice or that always makes things better. But also considering your refrigeration loads through the whole system. So what is your expectation? And like I said, buying cells, it pays to buy good cells at good prices for your solar system. And if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and you can end up spending a lot more money than what you have to. And so just kind of a brief update of really understanding what my expectations are, the power consumption, and understanding just the solar side of it. So the the white back sheet, that's an important thing, is that a lot of things when you're looking at solar panels, it says white. Well, they're talking about a white back sheet, which helps keep the solar panel cool from the radiant energy. And then most of them are silver, which are just naturally brushed aluminum. The sync inverters, like I said, a lot of technology is coming right out with the micro inverters that automatically sync with each other, that daisy chain into each other. And my attitude towards these type systems is the amperage load. Pretty much a solar panel a day is just a little under 10 amps of run through. So if you have that done in series, you can increase the voltage in a string system but where each panel is individually in there, you don't have a weak chain in there. There are advantages and disadvantages, but I'm leaning more towards the um, um, microinverters and those type designs, with the understanding that they do have microinverters that are coming out that will work for off-grid without having to be fooled and other things. So understand your building codes, your local areas, just going out and putting up solar panels. They're watching for all this, and the main thing is protecting the grid that's already there. And so protect the grid, protect the grid, protect the grid. Make sure you have proper lockouts for your emergency generation, to where there's no ifs, ands, and buts, where you're not backfeeding the poles and wire guys, because you can cause them problems if for down lines and things like that. Safety, safety, safety. That's about all I have for this. And like I said, just wanted to put out a video, since we're all looking at this. Got a pretty much a retail quotation for the system that'll work for me, which ended up, instead of 72 panels or even 36 panels, of being 23 panels, and that'll do the same work that 72 panels would do. So really look at that system, how you're going to tie in, what your goals are to do that, and realize your expectations. So I'm going to sign off, and hope you guys have a blessed day, and we'll see you next trip.